Hello, everyone. Thank you again for joining Britcast. I am Luke. I'm joined once again by Dave, my
Hello.
cohort, and we are joined by gaming industry veteran Shane Satterfield. Welcome, sir. Thank you for joining.
What up?
We have a plethora of topics to cover this episode, and the first one is a review of this generation. And I want to first start off by asking Shane a quick little summary of what he thinks of how it's been for the generation.
When you say review, is it kind of the trends that have gone through the entire generation? Or are you talking about like which platform has been the most successful?
Just what you think it is in this generation. What you think's been successful? What have you liked about it? What have you not liked about it? Just like as a summary.
And
Okay.
if anybody dropped the ball, who dropped it the worst?
Yeah.
Well, oh man, this is a tough one. I mean, especially if we're going to fit it into a 15-minute segment. But I think it's tough because, if you'd have talked to me 3 years ago, I probably would have said, the Xbox was the best platform of this generation. But, it's over the last couple of years, it's really slowed down on the exclusives, and it hasn't really gone out of its way to bring a lot to its users. And, whereas Sony has done a great job of continuing down that path, not even ignoring the smaller games, too, which is a big deal, stuff like Journey and some of their games for PSN have been some of the best games of, the last several years. So, a few years ago I would have said Microsoft, but, I feel like it's really fallen off. It kind of went off the rails a little bit with Kinect. Spent a lot of resources and, Rareware, they kind of just let them waste away working on Kinect games when they really needed exclusive games. And Sony's shown a commitment to that. So, I would say, Sony batting cleanup kind of hit a walk-off grand slam here. They came on really strong at the end of the generation. It was another, kind of repeat for Nintendo here. They always come out of the gate strong with their platforms, although Wii U was standing. And then after year 3, it's like they just forget that it's out there, and, people like us are left with nothing to play. So basically, it seems like you buy a Nintendo platform, you get that first big rush of all their franchises, and we'll get to those a little later when we talk about series fatigue. And then after that, you're kind of hung out to dry, and so hopefully that doesn't happen with the Wii U. But, as far as the bigger trends, motion gaming obviously is probably one of the biggest stories of this generation. Kind of came in with a bang and left with a whimper. Obviously, there are rumors swirling about the next Xbox having Kinect packed in with it, a new Kinect, an updated Kinect, hopefully a better Kinect. But, for me, it was kind of had that novelty at first, and then I just feel like ultimately the technology became a little limited. Particularly with Kinect, man, you really were kind of limited on the experiences you could have there. Not so much with, the Wii Remote and PlayStation Move. But still, I think they kind of ran out of ideas and ran out of steam on that. And then probably the other big story is mobile. Kind of the impact of mobile games in general on handheld gaming in particular, and even console gaming. It's completely readjusted the value of the video game. People pay $1 for a game. They see an ad here or there. The money has foretold that they're okay with that. People want to pay less for games. They're okay if there's an ad in their games. And it's had a huge impact on the handheld market, particularly with Sony. I think it's really kind of hard to rationalize buying a Vita at this point if you have an iPhone. I mean, I have the Vita, and honestly, I mean, I rarely use it. There's just no software for it, and it's a self-defeating cycle, right? It's like no one's buying the system and no one's buying the games, so what they need are more games, but when nobody buying it, it de-incentivizes them to make more games. So it just goes down this peril of doom. So one thing Nintendo's been good at is supporting its handheld with software, even when their chips were down. The 3DS kind of came out of the gate the same way the Vita did, but Nintendo doubled down, created that ambassador program to get people on board, where I feel like Sony just kind of bailed out. But, overall, I think it's been a great generation, especially with the online interfaces, Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, PlayStation Plus, which is awesome. I think that's another big story. Just seeing the online infrastructure, what it started at and where it's at now. I can only imagine what we're going to see 7 years ago as these platforms try to take over our living rooms.
Yeah, I think it's gone a bit too far as well. I think you said previously that we're in the 7th, knocking on the 8th year of some of these cycles. It's starting to feel like it's gone a bit too long as well, I find now.
Yeah, I mean, I was saying this, last year, this cycle it hurt everybody. It hurt software sales. The sales are down year over year. You have people, I mean, even though it's not going to happen, just the fact that people are kind of mentioning another video game crash is bad. And so it's just, we'll get to it with serious fatigue later on. But the other problem too is that as time went on, publishers took fewer and fewer risks. And they just kept creating those same sequels year over year. And ultimately it's up to us to vote with our money. And I feel like it took until the last 12 months before people finally said enough is enough. We're not going to buy these games year over year like we always do. So it's concerning the way the industry is right now. But every time a new generation comes, you usually get that rash of brand new franchises. I mean, think about it. Assassin's Creed didn't exist on the Xbox and PlayStation 2 and GameCube. And here it's one of the biggest franchises in the industry. And I'm sure we'll see several instances of that with the next generation.
I think it's weird as well, especially with when you said about the online. And what strikes me is when I'm on my Xbox, I always think I could never go back to the old clunky Blades interface. And all those people who like it, but just the way they've done the new interface, it just seems more open. I just think the way they've changed the way they present what they have is a big important factor, especially with now there's so much choice. They've got to be really careful as to what they put out there at the forefront of what they have to offer. And I think the interface, something as small, or what seems to be something as small as interface on a console, comes along something important, I think.
Well, look at the Wii U. It's been chastised for its interface. I mean, oddly enough, I've been watching the Coachella Music Festival, trying to watch it on my television. I don't have my PC hooked up to my TV, unfortunately, with all due respect to the PC Master Race. So I'm trying to stream it to my television. I try to use my PlayStation 3, browser won't work, YouTube app won't work. Try to use my 360, same deal. My Wii U works. I can live stream from YouTube on the Wii U.
I seen your tweet yesterday about that.
Yeah. Of all the consoles, for some reason, that's the one that works. But, the strategy is working. I plug in my Xbox. I use it for almost everything now. Or my PlayStation. It's like movies, buying music, whatever. Playing games. This strategy of these consoles becoming more than consoles and becoming the media hub. I stream music through my Xbox from my PC to listen on my big system. This strategy is paying off. The problem is now everyone's doing it. I just bought a new TV, and my TV does everything. It has an internet browser on it that actually works great. And, you can download pay-per-view movies through the TV directly through a Panasonic. That's the thing. It's saturation, and who ultimately is going to build the better mousetrap is who's going to come out on top.
Yeah, that's one thing I'm curious about, how the support's going to go for the current Xbox that's at the moment. Because in my house, my partner uses a slim Xbox. She bought that and she uses it as a multimedia hub. She plays a few games on it, but all of her Netflix, all of her music, uses it as a DVD player. That's how she sort of adopted the Xboxes as they've fallen in price. But like I say, when the next gen comes out, if they don't support the network and they switch all that off, they're going to lose that sort of new acquired fan base, the non-gamers that have bought a box as a multimedia hub. I was wondering how they're going to support that as well going forward.
That's going to be a challenge, because there are a lot of Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 owners out there, and a lot of people aren't ready to move on yet. So how do you keep those people happy while you're trying to push this new platform and, trying to avoid what Nintendo's run into, which is, hey, we have no games after launch for the first 6 months or more. Yeah. And so that'll be the challenge. It'll be interesting to see, particularly for Microsoft, because, the Xbox, they kind of sunset that platform early. It didn't have a run like the 360, that's for sure. And they were ready to move on from the Xbox because it wasn't the success that they'd hoped it to be. So it'll be interesting to see them try to transition from a successful platform into a new platform now and try to satisfy, more than that niche group of customers who had your old platform. I mean, think about the ire they had, over, how long they were going to support Xbox games on Xbox Live. That was a big deal when the 360 first launched. So, they're going to have to navigate those waters with a much bigger audience this time. And, that's something that Sony obviously has a lot more experience with. They went from the most successful platform, the PlayStation 2, to the PS3. Some would say they bungled it a little bit, but I think ultimately, what it really came down to with that platform was just the price. So Obviously, that's a big thing to bungle, but they did get a lot of other stuff right. Proprietary tech maybe wasn't the best decision either out of the gate. So people trying to learn that sell, but yeah, it's interesting how much the industry has changed in the last 8 years, and I can't even fathom, where we'll be 8 years from now, what these machines are going to do.
I didn't even know the Xbox. Were you looking forward to it?
Definitely.
Yeah. I didn't even know. Like, this is how out of tune I was, if you like, with gaming. I had an Xbox and I had a PS2 for a week, and then I got an Xbox, and then I didn't even know the 360 came out. I just went to a shop and seen it one day. I was like, oh, it's a new console. Oh well. And then I didn't get one till 2 years later.
Different world now with the internet, though, isn't it?
Is.
And the marketing Microsoft's going to throw at it. You're not going to miss the next gen launch.
That's the thing. There was no Twitter then. No real Facebook. I wasn't on Facebook or anything. I got it in 07. I missed the Xbox by like 2 years, 360.
Yeah, but I think that shows you, you look how into games you are now. One, that's a testament to digital media and the internet that, know, you have access to it to get into a hobby that you really love. But it also speaks to the fact that a lot of people that play games aren't like us. They are people who may or may not hear about the Wii U coming out, or may or may not know that the PlayStation 4 has already pretty much been announced, and all we're waiting for at this point is, to see what the form factor is. There are a lot of people, kind of like, the person you mentioned earlier, that, buys a couple games a year from their favorite franchises and then just uses it for kind of a utility tool that sits under their TV. And I think a lot of times when we're on shows like this, or even when you're kind of setting up your editorial strategy, you forget that the biggest group of people who buy games are more casual than people like us.
Yeah, I mean, like you just say, like moving on to like the PS4, I was curious to think what you thought about their launch or the launch event, and how they kind of went again. What Kazurai said about why go first when competitor can have a look at what you can do. Do you think that's happened now with PlayStation announcing so early on compared to Xbox, who are still quiet?
I think it was a great move on Sony's part. I think Sony knows it needed to get out ahead of the noise, coming off a generation that, I wouldn't say it would want to forget, but Sony as a corporation has really fallen on hard times over the last, half decade or whatever. And the PlayStation brand was always something that they could count on to kind of fill in the cracks. And that hasn't happened with the PlayStation 3. They really struggled to become profitable with the machine. And I think, the perception of Sony out there is maybe a little soiled. A lot of their old customers went over and bought the 360 instead of the PlayStation 3. And so I feel like, they have to be in a little bit of a damage control mode and get out ahead of the competitors. If you're confident in what you're working on, then you're not worried that what comes afterwards is going to make your announcement seem less important or less impactful. And I think, as far as the event goes, I thought they did a great job, man. First of all, bringing out Mr. Cerny is something they should have done decades ago. This guy has been working under the hood of PlayStation for 3 generations now, and this is probably the first time you guys had ever saw him, or maybe even heard of him.
It's first I've heard of him.
But to people who have been working in this industry for a long time, and I remember when the PlayStation 2 was getting ready to launch or whatever, and they brought us to a PlayStation event to kind of show us the first run of games. Like, he was the guy that ran the whole thing. He's the guy who builds the engines for Sony. He consults with all their teams, like Naughty Dog. He used to work with Insomniac. I don't know where that relationship's at now. But the guy's a freaking genius, and nobody even knows who he is. And I always wondered why they never brought this guy out. Because the other thing, too, is he's one of us. He's not some crazy polished, SVP of something you don't care about. Like, this guy has had his arms elbows deep in some of the best games in the industry for decades now. And so I just felt like he came out. He immediately establishes credibility. He wasn't reading a frickin' teleprompter. He knew it because he knows what he's talking about. He builds the games and he builds the engines. So it's not like he doesn't understand what he's talking about. He could sit there and go on for hours about it. And honestly, some of the best interviews I've ever done in my career have been with this guy, because he just, he has a passion for game theory and talking about, basically how to create the perfect breadcrumb trail to keep players motivated. Like, this guy, he's just beyond. So first of all, having him come out there to the beginning and kind of explain everything in layman's terms was great. And then to show off a brand new IP, Knack, which looks awesome. And obviously really with me knowing that he's working on it, my interest in it goes way up. I realize most people were probably like, oh, whatever, dumb kids game. But I'm telling you, you should probably keep an eye on that game. And then, to just show, first of all, realistic tech videos, not stuff that you're like sitting there going, oh, come on. Like, if you remember, half of the demos they showed off for the PlayStation 3 at first, everyone was like, they're bull shots. It's pre-rendered stuff that they did, and a lot of it turned out to be. I mean, look at the MotorStorm video that they showed when they debuted the PlayStation 3, and then go play MotorStorm. So,
yeah, I remember that.
So, what I'm saying is like what they showed that's pretty much what the games are going to look like. And while it wasn't completely mind blowing, I'm glad that they set expectations where they should be. They showed that a lot of partners are working on stuff. They showed that they're addressing a lot of the shortcomings of their prior platform by making it, kind of off the shelf parts. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I thought they knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, I was impressed with what they showed. I did want to see more games, admittedly, but Drive Club definitely got my attention because I'm a big driving fan.
Why Drive Club and not Gran Turismo was my question. I thought that was kind of interesting. They're bringing in, another developer to show off the first driving game for the PlayStation 4. What?
Yeah, I thought that, but then there's all that talk about potential GT6 coming to the end of the PS3 life cycle as well. I wonder if that's the developers wanting to have more exposure with an install base, because I get the impression that game isn't cheap to make after looking at how they made, GT5.
Well, that developer is notorious for taking way too long to make games. I mean, it's no secret. Every game that they make, they delay like 3 times. And I feel like the last one, I enjoyed it, but maybe that's another one of those games that comes up in franchise fatigue in a bit. It's one of those games. It's a very kind of dry experience that lacks character, and the sales I think kind of bore that out for the last Gran Turismo. It's so good, but you got to remember, like, Gran Turismo on the PlayStation 2, they bundled that in with the console, and like it completely jumped their life-to-date console sales up. Like it used to be a bona fide system seller. Now it's just become another great driving game, and so I was surprised that they wouldn't at least show off some of their tech and they let another developer go on stage and do that. But maybe, again, that's a sign that things are changing at Sony, maybe.
Yeah, and another thing about Gran Turismo 5, I feel that was the most unfinished game I ever bought on day one as well. I found so many little minor technical problems with that game. And what it is today is something completely different, I find. It's like not just support, it's almost finished. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, think about it. They built like they had like this little offshoot game. Like they completely split up their market. People didn't know what was going on. They're like, so which is the real Gran Turismo? Like it. And then after all that time, they put it out and it still has tons of issues. I mean, I get it. That game is huge, but at the same time, maybe you need to tone it down a little bit so you can get the game done in 2 or 3 years and release it bug free. I mean, whatever you got to do to make a better game.
Yeah, I mean, one thing they did do, I mean, I was, like you say, back from the PS1 days playing on I think it was Gran Turismo was back on the PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
It was one of the first games I got, like you say. And it put the Gran Turismo 5 pushed me over to Forza. And I found that what Turn 10 have done with the modern driving game was much more appealing to me. And like I said, it wasn't so much of a stale environment. And again, it was like the online ability with playing with your friends and all the racing and all the different cups you could race in online. That's what drew me over. So they almost lost a diehard fan to another franchise because of the shortcomings in what that game delivered. In what they say was the final product, but I still stand by that was like 70% complete. I really do.
Yeah. I think what excites me though about that press conference is, like, since playing the PS1 and seeing the FMVs in Final Fantasy 7 and 8, I've always thought, to have a game where the graphics were as good as the cinematics, and the Killzone Shadowfall. Like, yes, it was very scripted, and yes, I think what they've shown was a small part of the game. But having a game that looks that good, for me especially,
playing it no less.
Exactly, I just can't even wait. And I love Killzone. I love the story of it. Having Killzone as well on the PS3, Killzone 2 and 3. I like 2 better. It just seems more gritty and there's more weight to the gun. Whereas 3, it's a good game, but it doesn't feel. You don't feel as weighted down by what you're carrying the gun and stuff like that. But no, the new one, I can't even wait for it. And the visuals on that, and the thing what David Cage presented, the face with the like, it's crazy what the games are going to be getting in 10 years. It's just like, it's going to be insane.
Yeah, I mean, that was one thing that I thought maybe was a little bit of bullshit was some of the David Cage stuff. Because you remember the faces that they showed when they announced the PlayStation 3? I mean, look at the faces in games now. They never quite got there. Although they did get close, I would say. But I think that's one part of the presentation. I thought, one, I didn't feel like they needed to just burn 10 minutes to show a face, but two, I just thought that might be a little suspect ultimately. I mean, if you can use all the power to build one face, of course it's going to look amazing.
Yeah. That's a good point. But I just can't wait for games like it's same with the Assassin's Creed Revelation cinematic with Woodkid on the soundtrack. Like that cinematic, to have a game that look that good would be so good.
Yeah, and I think the bottom line for Sony too is that it's worked. Announcing it early has worked. GameStop here in the U.S. is saying, people are like coming in asking when they can pre-order like every day. So I think the hype is definitely been raised. I think they're on the radar before everyone else. And in combination with some of the bad PR Microsoft has had lately over some of the leaks about Durango, I think Sony's put itself in a pretty good position here.
Well, yeah, it's like you say, mentioned Microsoft. Do you think that they've waited too long to really give any sort of hard facts on what the next Xbox is going to be? It seems very much like they've almost got developers who are making games for multi-platform PS4, the new Xbox. It's like they're on lockdown. They can't say anything. They know plenty, and I think that's where the leaks are coming from. The developers that know exactly what it will do. And Microsoft, I feel, need to start. They need to say something soon because, like you say, there's too much negative press out there on them. I mean, I'm reading a lot of stuff about this always online. I mean, what do you think about that? The always online side of things.
Oh man, that's a deep well to dive down right there. The always on topic. I mean, obviously there's been a few examples lately where it's been a disaster. With SimCity. But I mean, it's very easy to live somewhere where you have great internet access and everywhere you go, your phone has 4G. And say, what's the big deal? But the fact of the matter is, I mean, here in America's a big freaking country, and if you ever drive across it, you realize just how much rural area there is in this country. I mean, you get isolated in a city and you see everything's like this. Everyone has millions of restaurants around, and you can go walk a block and buy whatever you want. But I mean, that's not the way it is. And some people have internet access through like a satellite dish that's like barely above dial-up. And it drops all the time when the wind blows or whatever, So there are a lot of people out there who could be affected by this, But at the same time, I mean, it's almost to the point where maybe this is the type of thing, not just it by itself, but once enough of these things come up, then suddenly these states are forced to try to get, wide pipes out to these people. Because the bottom line is, if you want to function in society at this point successfully, you pretty much have to be online in some way, shape, or form. I mean, I do everything online. I can't imagine, not being connected. It's unfathomable to me. But, at the same time, that's a big chunk of people. And, ultimately that will make a difference in your numbers if people feel like that the always connected thing could keep them from being able to play a game whenever they want to. And I think maybe the bigger issue here is if it is an always-on thing, and they eliminate used games. And I think that's kind of where the real underswell is coming from, are the people who are thinking, okay, the always-on thing sucks, but really this could lead to me not being able to buy games cheaper, or me not being able to buy games used, or me not being able to, like, borrow a game from my friend. And to me, that's the big issue, man. Like, that was a big part of my childhood was, I get Sega, you get Nintendo, we just swap systems every 2 weeks, or, here's 2 great games coming out, I buy one, you buy the other. I mean, that was like camaraderie. That's what built my love for video games. And when you lose that sharing a great experience with somebody, that cuts at the core of what, to me, our hobby is about. And I think that's where it starts getting into the dangerous territory. And I think that's where people are kind of raising the red flags. But at the same time, looking at things realistically, they are kind of the vocal minority. And when you're a big corporation looking at billions of dollars in revenue, I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to take that into account.
Yeah. But how do you feel? I mean, how do you feel about Microsoft in general, the way they're handling, or not handling, the bad press they're getting from these leaks? I mean, how do you see they're going to handle the next gen coming into it? Because like you said, Sony have done a really good job, stand-up job with that presentation. Whereas Microsoft aren't getting any good news. It's just all negative. All the leaks are all bad in their direction. I mean, how do you see them coming back from this? Do you think they've really got an ace up their sleeve?
Well, the ace up their sleeve is that, they have the best-selling console of this generation. And there's a lot of people that are satisfied with the Xbox 360. That's the bottom line. They feel like they've got a lot of value out of it. And so there's a lot of customers that are looking to buy an Xbox. It's not, sure, Sony's announced this stuff, but there's a lot of people who want another Xbox. They've had a great experience with it. And so that, to me, is their ace in the hole, is that they have a lot of customers who like their product and expect them to create another product that's just as good or better. So they have that goodwill built in. The other part of it, too, is that you got to remember, most of the people who buy consoles have no idea that some dude lost his job because he went on his Twitter account and said, oh, always on is okay. Like, again, it's like we isolate ourselves in this bubble of otaku, but my uncle doesn't know anything about that. He doesn't know jack. He may know the PlayStation 3 was announced. Maybe he saw one video on YouTube of it or something. But he buys a ton of games. He doesn't play them all. He buys a ton. He buys them for his kids. I mean, I think, people are maybe exaggerating where Microsoft is sitting right now. And you got to remember that, E3 is 60 days away. Not even 60 days away. 2 months.
Scary.
I mean, is it a big deal to wait 60 more days when the product's not going to be available for another 4 or 5 months, hopefully? Microsoft is smart, man. These corporations are huge corporations for a reason. There's a lot of smart people that work at them. They look at a lot of data, and they know how to react to it, and get the most out of their company. And so, I feel like PR-wise, with journalists and some of the hardcore folks like us, it's probably a bad move, particularly how they addressed it, firing the guy afterwards or him or whatever happened. He left the company right afterwards. So
Yeah,
that maybe was
door.
investing. Yeah, I mean, why would you do that, man? It's like that's not going to build goodwill with the otaku, so to speak. But at the same time, the otaku is a very small group, and when Microsoft is ready to talk, most people will be ready to listen. And for most people, that's E3. They know that that's the one time every year where all the big stuff happens, and they know to tune in, and they will, and they'll learn all about the next Xbox. They'll learn all about the next PlayStation, and hopefully they'll learn about some games for the Wii U. At least I'm hoping that's the case.
Yeah, well, the Wii U, the one thing, you mentioned the Wii U. The problem I've got with that, I've got a friend that's got one, and he's a complete gamer. He's got far too much money, so he buys nearly everything anyway. Is the price of the Wii U games. Some of them, they're just basically ports to what you can play on the Xbox. But over in the UK, they're priced at like 50 quid, which is £10 over the norm. And I just find that there isn't enough coming out to still warrant me going out and purchasing one of those. Because I know, realistically, as a hardcore gamer, I know how fast I burn through games.
Yeah.
I really, really do. Putting Bioshock Infinite into my machine, after a 14-hour stint, and my partner reminded me that I need to sleep at some point. I got up 5 hours later and finished it.
Yeah.
And before some reviews were up. Potentially, but with the Wii U having such a limited amount of software, they're losing that hardcore element. They're not getting any interest from the hardcore at all, and the casual gamers that have still got a dusty Wii that they're probably still jumping around playing the game that they got with the machine. I think they've just missed out such a major part of their marketing. They've just got nothing to offer both sides. Price point too high, software availability too low for the hardcore. I think in general they've just dropped the ball completely with that Wii U.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. The only episode I did of Invisible Walls this year, we did predictions, and my prediction was what's happening with the Wii U right now. I said that they'd start an ambassador program like they did for 3DS. That hasn't happened yet, but they're getting pretty desperate with that machine. And, being completely candid, I completely regret buying that console. I do. I know they're going to drop the price, and I could have got it cheaper, and I can't really think of a single game that I've played on that thing that I'm going to remember like 10 years from now as like a magical experience. They shouldn't have released it yet. And then they should have released it later, and it should have been cheaper, because now the price difference between it, they better pray that the consoles that are going to be announced at E3 come in at like, $399 or over $400, or they're going to look ridiculous. So they're in a real tough position. Where the hell's Pikmin, man?
Yeah.
Are we still in the launch window? Does this count? We're like, I remember even after they said it wasn't coming out of launch, they're like, oh, it'll still be in the launch window. It's April. Where is it?
Where's
it's such a
anything
shame
been?
as well, though. It's a real shame, because when I think back to when I was like 9, like Nintendo, there was no one that could touch them. They were like just everywhere. And like N64 was like the console to have, and with your friends, and GoldenEye and around everyone's house, and multiplayer. It's like the far from graceful Nintendo's been. It's been gradual and slow, but it's just been like horrible to watch, and they're not doing anything about it.
But it's really a perception issue. It's not really a downfall. I mean, they made more money than God last generation with the Wii. Everyone forgets. I mean, yeah, it was only really banging off for 3.5 years, but man, the amount of money they made in those 3.5 years is staggering. DS, best-selling handheld. 3DS, best-selling handheld. I mean, financially, Nintendo is fine. I mean, they have over $10 billion just sitting in the bank doing nothing. I mean, they're still a successful company, but it's perception. And the perception right now is that, they're failing, and they are failing. I mean, Iwata has said as much that they're failing. The bottom line is they just didn't have software ready. They spent way too much resources on Nintendo Land, and, it didn't pan out. They thought it was going to be the next Wii Sports. No one cared, and now they're stuck in a lurch because they thought people were going to keep playing. I can't even fathom this. We're going to keep playing Nintendo Land for 5 months. They knew Pikmin wasn't going to be done. They knew it. And they thought that the software they had at launch was going to carry it, and they were wrong.
Yeah, it's like my friend I was talking about who bought the Wii U at launch for his kids. Now, what he did is he traded the Wii in with all the nunchucks and adapters. And then when he got it home wanting to play that Nintendo Land...
He needed them all back.
Yeah, so it actually ended up costing him another 100. But the thing was, is the sales staff at a shop that he knew, they weren't briefed enough to actually say, well, you're going to need these if you're giving us those in exchange for this. They didn't genuinely know, because I know some of these people, and they said that when it came back that a lot of these extra peripherals would be needed. I think it was a lack of information that came out from Nintendo as well. It was a very stealthy launch with not enough facts.
That was a thing, for us, because we felt like once we got, Nintendo Land and realized the controller requirements for that stuff, and we had seen it at trade shows, but they were pretty clever about not showing a lot of the games that required extra Wii remotes. They showed the one Mario Chase game and you had to use them there, but for the most part it was always the gamepad. And so when we started playing it, we're like, wait, the best mini games in this need a nunchuck and a Wii remote. We tried to message that the week of launch, but you could only reach so many people, and unfortunately your friend wasn't one of them.
No, it was kind of my fault as well, because I was standing there laughing at him and he was like, do you know how much these things cost? I was like, yep.
Yeah, I do. That's why I'm laughing at you. Maybe he should go on the internets next time.
Well, he's one of these guys, when a new game comes out, he'll buy it. He'll play up until the first boss that he can't beat, and then it'll gather dust. He's like a hardcore game purchaser. He's not a hardcore game player. Oh, I've played this game.
Yeah, that's the way it is. A lot of people are like that. I mean, you talk to a lot of developers, and they'll say, oh, man, we had a 28% completion rate, and excited. And I'm like, what?
Really?
28%? Oh, they're crazy low, man. Nobody finishes games. I think some games it's 10% of people that finish. And some of those games that have with BioShock, there's a lot of buzz about the ending for BioShock Infinite.
Yes, indeed.
But even when that stuff happens, it rarely bumps up the figures that much, because everyone I talk to, all my casual playing friends, I'm like, BioShock Infinite, make sure you finish it. You have to get to the end. There's evangelists like me out there for all these games, and it rarely bumps up the figures much. So
I had no idea
shocking.
There was that completion
people
rates.
Do not finish games. Yeah, the average person never makes it. I think I read somewhere that Grand Theft Auto 4, I think people made it halfway through the game on average or something before they quit. Yeah, and that was the biggest game at the time that had come out to the platform. So.
I wonder if there's some reason behind why some games have such terrible endings, and because developers are like, well, only a few people are going to finish it.
just do what they want.
Open with a bang and then just taper off towards the end.
Well, it goes back to what I was saying about... It goes back to what I was saying about Cerny. That's one of the things he thinks very hard about is how do you keep players motivated? You have to keep feeding them something every, 19.48 seconds or what other algorithm he has figured out for it. But there's a science to that. Engaging a player at the start, making sure that you're giving them enough positive reinforcement every set amount of time for them to want to keep going. I mean, it's a whole, you can study that, all on its own when you talk about game development.
Yeah, you've got to literally dangle a carrot in front of a game, and not only have you got to get them to buy it, you've got to get them to finish it as well. That's
Yep.
interesting.
Well, especially if you start talking about DLC, which has become more important over the last, half decade.
Mm.
That's a big supplement to sales now. And so, if you can't get someone to finish the main campaign, how do you expect them to buy an add-on for that game? It's not going to happen. So it's become increasingly important to engage the player, get their emotional attachment to it so that they get all the way to the end of it, and then try to dish them onto the DLC.
It's interesting you say that. I'm such a sucker for these season passes because I get season passes all the time. And what I find is by the time the first bit of DLC usually comes within a month sometimes. But when you're
Yep.
talking the second, third, fourth, when they talk about that fourth one will technically be the free one because you saved on all the others. I haven't even played the second one. So
Yeah.
actually
Right,
I've
you're
played.
burned out at that point, right? You don't want to
Yeah.
play it anymore.
And it's remembering what season pass. I mean, my collection of games is pretty ridiculous. How many I've got, but it's like the season pass coming out. Have I got? Oh, you know what? I can't do this because there's something else coming out next week. It's like I
Yeah,
don't know
I
how good.
usually only do season passes for shooters, man. That's it. Like the shooters that I really play a lot and I really get into, I'll buy season passes for those because I play them for like almost a whole year until new ones come out. So they're like my time killers. If I'm waiting for my wife to get ready to go out to dinner or whatever, I sit there and play them for 15 minutes. So I will always end up buying like all the map packs and stuff like that for the shooters that I really like to play. But otherwise, a season pass for me, not going to happen. I'm
I
just like
was,
you. I lose interest after a bit.
I was going to say, you say about shooters. I remember you saying once, is it true you still don't prestige on Call of Duty once you get to the highest level? Is that
Yep.
right? Yeah. Fair
Yeah.
play. I couldn't
I have
remember.
no motivation because I don't care about like the emblem. Like
Yes.
I get there and I got everything now. I play to have fun. I'm not like a guy who's like, I don't talk shit to people online. Like I don't even use my mic half the time when I play online at all. One, because I don't want to hear from other people, and two, I don't really have anything to say. I just play for fun. So, yeah, I get to whatever the prestige level is, and I just sit there. And people will talk crap to me. They're like, oh. They'll look at my score and they're like, "Oh my god, you have like a billion kills and you've never prestige." You're like, "Oh, you're afraid of prestige." It's like, whatever, dude.
I don't understand that. I'm the same, and it's funny when you say to someone, "Oh, you play for fun and enjoy it," you get such like, "Oh, what's the point in playing? You shouldn't even play the game if you just play for fun." And it's like,
That's the point of playing
yes,
games.
exactly. It's
I think
just
that's what a lot of people lose is like, people get so uptight over
oh, they
video
do.
games and so mad, and I'm like, they're games. They're supposed to be fun. This is a hobby that we should share with each other and enjoy, not like, I see people going at each other on the internet or comments to make about people. It's like, well, what are you doing? They're games, video games.
Mm.
Obviously, I mean, I'll tell you something quite funny. I mentioned it on a previous show, but I'm so passionate about my driving games. If I get shunted online, the language is biblical how bad it is.
Oh,
And
really?
yeah, it's really bad. And my girlfriend has said I am so unapproachable if I'm pulling myself out of a gravel trap. She has
Doesn't that happen every race, though?
yeah, well, this is the thing. So she loves it when she sees me come home with a brand new copy of F1 or what the new grid game's going to be in a couple of weeks.
Got the crucifix ready.
She's resorted to taking a sticker book with farm animals, sticking them on a piece of card, writing me a message and putting it in front of the TV because she doesn't think I'm going to shout at farm animals. And there's now a nice collection growing around where I have all my gaming stuff and things like that. She calls it Angry Duck. She won't, cause just to belittle me a bit, she goes, "You're just an angry duck, aren't you, for screaming at people? These could be children." I don't care. He ran me. It's just, I'm completely inconsolable.
So
So
sometimes you're that guy.
I am.
Yes.
I'm that guy. It's all about finishing first and having the fastest. I will go back on a game. If my friend beats me by a couple of tenths, I will sit there for 4 hours just to go top of my friends list
Jeez.
on the auto log.
Isn't that why autolog is so awesome, though? It just puts it right in your face. It's like, yo, he just beat your time. What are you gonna
Yeah,
do about it?
he may as well just come with a big hand and slap me. It's like, right, I got to put that game on. Or a friend will text me or they'll tweet me a picture because they know how much it gets me. And then when they log on their console and they see I'm playing like F1 and I got to take 2 tenths out of Melbourne, they just send me messages to distract me. I'm such a sucker for it, and I fall for it every time.
That's great. I mean, that's another thing that was really cool about this gen. I mean, just talking about like the online infrastructures and stuff. Being able to do that is really cool. Like, not even just in like racing games, other stuff like, pretty much even shooters have it at this point. SSX had a really cool system where it constantly alerted you to people beating your scores. I really, really like that. It brings back the arcade feeling to gaming again, where it's like putting your name up actually means something again. And it's funny because really they're just like the leaderboard, which has always been there. But now they're just like, hey, look at the leaderboard. And this one dude just topped you. And I think another part of it, too, is not making it so anonymous. You know, it engages you with your friends, people you care about. It's like, I don't care about Billy Bob 420, wherever he lives, like, that he beat my score. But, you know, my buddy, if he beats it, man, look out. You know, we're going to talk some shit, and we're gonna see who can shave off the most time. So that's another thing that's been really cool about this gen with the way online has progressed, is just being able to do that stuff, getting push notifications to your mobile phone when someone beats your time. I mean, it's pretty sweet.
In a meeting. Fuck, he's just done it.
That would be no good. The amount of meetings I get tied up in my day job, if I got a tweet saying you've just been done on a lap, I would not remember what I got to talk about.
I've got to go and do something.
I'm that bad. I am that bad. I'd be like, oh God, I got to go home at dinner time or something like that. But
well, it's like, you know, sports games. If you're in franchise mode with somebody, like you get an update when, you know, they moved up the standings. Like, it's just the always connected thing. I mean, is pretty sweet when it's done right.
No, well, you say about sports games, me being a racing fan, you've got that F1 co-op mode where you and your friend race on the same team. I've nearly fallen out with some very good friends because when it comes mid-season and one of us is a bit further ahead on points, you play a potential 20, 30 hours online with a friend for only one of you to get the championship. You can fall out with people if they cut you off in the pit lane. You can be like, right, I ain't talking to you on Xbox. We're just going to race now. You can sit there in silence.
For 20 minutes.
Yeah, I ain't talking to you.
Long.
Full jobs. Nope.
Oh, yeah. I have a full-on sulk. But that's the enjoyment. That's what we all put. Like you say, Shane, you put on a shooter to do that. I put on a racing game. That to me is fun. The camaraderie and the almost fake falling out with a friend on a racing game. That's the fun you have with this hobby. That's what this generation's brought. Like you say, with the online play, you have the ability.
I feel like there was a gap there, man. It went from, you know, N64, PlayStation, PS2, GameCube, Xbox, all those machines. I felt like I spent the majority of my multiplayer time sitting with someone in a room playing with them.
Yes.
And, you know, the Xbox obviously had Xbox Live and you could play online, but still most of the stuff was offline. And then, you know, once we got the Xbox Live we have now in PlayStation Network, there was like a 3 or 4 year period where I felt like I played games by myself all the time. It's like at first it was cool and people would like jump on and play, but, you know, eventually, you know, when it was also different, you know, having someone in the room to give an elbow to the ribs to at just the right time, like all that stuff was missing. But I feel like this auto log type thing and these alerts like have kind of recreated that feeling online, and it's awesome.
Yeah, but now we've all got our own individual man caves when we're playing online or playing an Xbox. When I've got a friend over, like Pat Liver, we're going to have on the show at a later date. When he's over, neither of us are as good when we're in the same room. But when it's online, we're both at our best.
Because you're in the zone.
Because I'm sat there in my comfy underpants, cross-legged, lying upside down on my big sofa in full position. I can't do that when there's somebody in the room. And split screen, I can't go back to split screen because I look at everything.
But you know what? A lot of games, when they come out, if they don't have a split-screen multiplayer, a lot of people complain. It always makes me laugh. I'm like, really? But they're, like I said, those are the same people who aren't online and don't have reliable internet. And so they have to play local. And a lot of people will make their purchase decisions on whether or not there's local multiplayer, because otherwise they can't play it. And that's, sadly, in this day and age, that's a big, you know, determinant on whether somebody buys or rents a game, is whether it has multiplayer. And it makes sense. And, you know, $60 a game, like, it's hard to rationalize, you know, $60 on a game that lasts 5 hours the way some of these campaigns do these days, you know?
Speaking of prices as well, someone's tweeted today the price of Super Mario Galaxy 2, and that game's years old. And it was a tweet that he put a picture up on Twitter of it, and it was still $50 for that game.
Really?
It's worth it. It's worth it. Like, I was going to finish your sentence. I knew it would sell at full price because people will still buy it at full price. I mean, it's a great game, almost a transcendent platformer. I mean, think about it. Have any platformers come out after that game? Like, hardly at all. Because I almost feel like developers were like, dude, we can't top that. We'll throw some stupid mascot in there. It'll be, you know, a shadow of that game, and what's the point? I mean, there hasn't been that's the one genre that really disappeared this generation. It really pisses me off as a platformer, man. Like, I'm a big gameplay guy, and so I love, you know, playing platformers where it's really all about your playing skill. And now everything's just like point and click. Here's a quick time event. Okay, shoot a couple dudes. Here's another quick time event. Like, I like games that require pinpoint precision with your thumbs, and a lot of games don't have it anymore. Platformers were that way, and they've pretty much just gone away. I mean,
Well,
they're
that's why
really
the rise of the I mean, arcade. That's pretty much where you're going to find platformers now, isn't it? In the arcade section and on PSN, like direct to download almost.
and they're
Not.
all 2D platformers. Like, I've been playing 2D platformers. I mean, my God, since Donkey Kong in the arcade. So it's like 3D platformers is what I'm talking about. Something with a third dimension, but they're hard to make. You have to have a really skilled team to make them, and the expectations are that the games are really big. And so I think, ultimately everyone's like, oh, that's not as good as Mario Galaxy, and they don't buy it, and they've just spent $20 million to make a game that tanks. So I would love to see that genre come back, but I'm not holding my breath.
I mean, we've touched on like Mario and Call of Duty, and we've also said about like sports franchises. I'm going to bring up like brand fatigue, annual iterations of games. Do you think it's gone a bit out of hand now, where we are with these? Just the big games that are coming out each year have now got a 4, 5, or 6 attached to the end of them. Do you think it's...
Well, here's the problem. The problem is that there's no rhyme or reason to it. I mean, honestly, if you really start looking across all these franchises, it's all over the map. I mean, you look at Assassin's Creed 3. A lot of people are like, oh, I'm so sick of that franchise. Well, it sold 70% better than the last Assassin's Creed. A lot of people point at Call of Duty. Fair enough. It comes out every year. Black Ops 2 was down 14% in its first month from Modern Warfare 3, but it had like a week less days. So basically it sold on par, but you're seeing a little fatigue there, but not much. Halo 4 outsold Reach, but the multiplayer died on that game pretty quickly. I mean, if you go online now, it's not like, all the prior Halo games where there's still a strong community. It's shrunk a good bit compared to prior Halo games.
It suffers with the most lag as well, because I'm a fan of that for it. There's a lot of slowdown, and I've crashed a lot on that more than any other Halo game. You
Yep.
could tell Bungie's departure, I think, had something to do with that. But no, sorry,
Right.
carry on, Shane.
So there you have like several games that, a lot would say serious fatigue, but they're still doing as well or better than prior games. But then you look at like Gears of War. Gears of War Judgment, in the UK, it sold a quarter of what the last Gears did. So it looks like there's actually some fatigue going on there. God of War Ascension sold basically half of God of War 3. So I think you're seeing some fatigue with those two franchises. Look at Nintendo. I think Nintendo's seeing it now, finally, with their Mario games. When a 2D Mario game can't move a platform, that's when you're kind of seeing some fatigue there. I mean, you also saw it with the last Zelda game for the Wii. It sold horrible in comparison to a lot of Zelda games, particularly when you look at the installed base of that platform. If you look at it, actually, I think it's sold pretty much as well as other Zelda games are around that. But if you look at the attach rate on that platform compared to prior Zelda games, it's not even close. I mean, the amount of people that owned a Wii to the amount of people that bought that game was minuscule compared to, say, the number of people who owned an N64 and bought Ocarina of Time. So I think you're seeing some fatigue with even the Zelda franchise at this point, which I think a lot of people thought may have been bulletproof after all this time. But like I said, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It just seems like it's completely random, based on franchise. I mean, the one thing I would say is that a lot of the games, it seems like, that have lost some of that cachet based on its brand alone are kind of games that are, a little meatheadish, don't have a lot of kind of hidden value to them. Maybe their multiplayers aren't as strong, or their multiplayer has become stagnant. But other than that, man, it's really hard to find a common thread between, serious fatigue. What is it? Some franchises people never burn out on. Some of them, they're starting to.
Yeah, I think that's what I've got. I think it's like when you say about hardcore gamers that are buying something month in, month out. It seems to be a lot of focus and the attention is on those annual iterations rather than a game which is like a new IP. I don't think the new IPs are given enough promotion by some of the publishers that put them out. I think all the focus is on like the Assassin's Creed, the Call of Duties, and the FIFAs and the Halos, that type of thing. It's almost, I don't know, it seems to
And those are the ones who probably need the marketing the least.
That's what I mean, yeah. I mean, for
Everybody knows. I know Halo. I liked that game. I'll probably like another one. Like, you don't need to tell them. It's like they know it's coming. They know it's out there. But you're right. It's these smaller games that really get kind of swallowed up.
And it's almost like that's what damages the industry, I find, because you get people that maybe only buy 2-3 games a year, and they are like one sports franchise, maybe Call of Duty, and then they have a look at Assassin's Creed. They're the only 3 that they buy. Then you get gamers like us that will buy, well, essentially for me, like 20 plus games a year for my consoles. But now it's getting to the point where I've had enough of those franchises because I've played them all. I'm not seeing anything new, so I don't know if I'm willing to put that much time into the same mechanics. It just looks a little bit polished, and the storytelling's probably not as good as the last one because I find that they run out of ideas personally.
Yeah, although I would say BioShock Infinite might be the exception.
Oh yeah, definitely. But we haven't had annual iterations of that one though. That's why I give that one a bit of a lie.
That's why the game's good.
That's the problem I've just got with it when I see this, and like the Assassin, I've almost felt it was too early for this Assassin's Creed 4 to be like the videos start pumping around. It's like, you know what, I haven't bought myself to finish Assassin's Creed 3.
It's scary how close it is to 3. The announcement of Black Flag is. It's scary how
call it 4, and it's not like a subtitled game either, which is, I get why they did it. Numbered sequels sell way better, but there's a little subterfuge going on there.
Yes. Yeah. 3 for me, I enjoyed it, but it left as a little like it's like when a TV show runs too long. I want it to end. I want it to have a conclusion that's fitting, not just be drawn out and then I'm sick of it.
Well, here's the crazy thing for me about that game. I reviewed that game on, with preview code on a debug console. Played through that whole game, really dug into the wilderness and everything. Mm-hmm. Had one minor sound bug the entire time. And then everybody else starts playing it, and I start seeing all these videos online. Everyone's coming into work. They're saying, oh, my God, I had this horrible bug. I couldn't believe it. Usually it's the opposite. Usually you play a version that's really buggy, and then you mention it in the review, and then people are like, what are you talking about? I didn't have any bugs or what. But this was the opposite, where the preview version I played actually was more stable and had less bugs than what people ended up playing on retail. It's very odd.
Yeah, the mass-produced, cheaper disc version really paid off then.
I don't know. I can't explain it. They must have changed some code in there that had a domino effect on other things. I don't know. But yeah, I had one bug the whole time I played that game for review, and then it came out, and everybody was like, this thing's a mess.
It's scary as well, because now you get the day one patches. Like, it's an expectation to have to load up a game on day of release to have a patch waiting for you, just to tidy it up so it's ready.
Yeah.
There's always a 4 meg patch waiting for you when you put it in.
So it was funny. I just got a 3D TV, and so I'm in the whole novelty period of having a 3D TV. So I've been trying like everything that I have is 3D to see how it works. So I started going back through my games. Remember that there was that little like 9-month period where Sony was pushing like 3D really hard.
Yeah.
And it was like their big flagship was MotorStorm Armageddon. So I find that game on my shelf. I maybe played like an hour of it before or whatever. I pop it into my machine, and it begins a process that took probably 45 minutes before I could actually play the game. Jeez. Of downloading patches for like everything. And, PSN servers are real slow here in the U.S. I don't know how they are for you guys over there, but they're real slow here.
Terrible.
And they had made so many patches for the game that the patch was like a gig or something like that. It took forever to download the thing and then to install it, then to restart. I was just like, wow. Like, there's no such thing as plug and play anymore. I found this game on my shelf. It would not let me play it in that state. It forced me to download the update and update it. So I was like, man, it used to be, oh, here's this cartridge. Let me plug it in and hit the power button. Now it's like this convoluted process that you go through if you like dig up an old game off your shelf. It's funny.
That was something I've mentioned. Look, that happened to me the other day. I wanted to put my Vita on. Thought I'll play a bit of Persona 4. I wanted to put it on, and I had to do a system patch. Do you want to do by Wi-Fi? Yes. And my daughter had just gone to sleep, so I pressed right. This will update. And honestly, the 30 plus minutes it took to do the patching and then the patching and then the other screen, and then they just lie to you with lots of little bars on that PS Vita, I'm telling you. By the time it was like, right, the title screen is up, I literally pressed start and my daughter woke up. So that half-hour window I had to pick up and play on my Vita lasted to the point where I heard the music, pressed the PlayStation button and turned it back off again. So yeah, sometimes, like you say, pick up and play. That's a thing of the past. If there's a patch, you're in trouble.
Well, once you got a hard drive, it was all over, and I knew it. I mean, I think if you could probably go back and find some articles I wrote back in the day when the first console got a hard drive, and I was saying, this is the death of quality games. Everybody has like a safety net now, or at least they think they do. And then it gets to another point where with some games, if they don't sell very well, they just completely bail on fixing it anyway. They're just like, only 20,000 people bought it. They can bitch all they want. We're not going to spend, $1 million to fix this thing. And it's just it opens Pandora's box to a whole bunch of bad stuff.
And the way the consoles charge as well to put patches on there, that definitely hurts the indie developers. I read something once about the developers of Fez, was it? They had their free patch came out and it had an effect on people's save games, and they literally had to issue an apology saying, look, we can't fix this problem because it's going to cost us 50 plus grand or something on those lines to repair it. We just can't afford to do that. So sorry about that. That's what you've got to play with.
Yeah. How do you charge somebody $50,000 to upload something?
That's
How do I get into that business?
Try and put him on you for his Curiosity project.
Yeah.
I was thinking, should we go around the horn and just say like what everybody's best expectation is for the next gen? I'm just, the one thing that you really want to see come out of what PlayStation and Microsoft are going to offer. Yeah, Shane, should we start with you?
Okay, here's what I hope for. I hope for games where all the characters in the games are smart. They reason, they have AI, they don't repeat patterns, they act like human beings. That is my big hope, because I think if you're really counting on the visuals to get you through and rationalize spending that $400 or $500, I think that's going to be a tough sell. I mean, you've seen some of the Sony PlayStation 4 demos. They look pretty good, but I don't think you saw a lot of people saying, wow, that blew me away. I think you were in the minority if you felt that way. So I think it's going to take other elements of games to really impress people, and I think one that can immediately do it is AI. If you can interact with, I think you even saw it a little bit, even though it was all pretty much canned in BioShock Infinite. Just the support that you got from your AI character without having to fumble with buttons, but I'm talking about that to a whole other level. And if every character you interact with seems realistic, the game overall will seem a lot more realistic. And then another pet peeve is repeated enemies. There's no reason at this point that you should walk into a room and there should be 8 of the same character models in there. That is something that drives me bonkers. It always takes me out of games when that happens. Some crazy emotional scene is happening or a monster's trying to get to you and you see like 2 of the same dudes walk by. It's like it just takes me out of the whole experience, and that's something that the power can also do to help that isn't directly related to how many polys can we push and how many effects can we throw on screen.
Luke, and what do you want, sir?
Mine is more of a kind of less on the gameplay side, but more on the I suppose you call it the development side of it. Is I really do not want a repeat of the Mass Effect thing. Because I know you, Shane, on his Wild said it sets a really bad precedent for that kind of thing where the gamers can shout and scream and then get BioWare to fall under the pressure.
Yeah, I mean, this game in particular, most people were in agreement that they did not appreciate the ending. But what happens if, the next game that this happens with, as a player, I was perfectly happy with the way they ended the game and I liked it. Then all of a sudden it becomes this, what happens? You put a poll up and whoever gets the most votes, I mean, it's like I said, a long time ago, it just opens up Pandora's box to possibilities that I don't want to explore.
Was the arrogance of them calling for the right to be sacked? Like, for me, that was so... It was ridiculous.
It's the internet, man.
It's stupid. And that's all I want is... Because we'll go on forever about it, but I just don't want to repeat of that. I just want... People, if they like the game, fair enough, your opinion, but I don't think your opinion should have an effect on how a developer makes the game that they're making.
Yeah, it's like I said before, it's a good thing that, Picasso didn't listen to anybody. Thank God.
I think what mine would be is kind of like similar to what Shane touched on, but AI again. But my main thing is difficulty levels. I want to see different levels of AI within a game, not just turn it up to the hardest setting because I feel like a challenge.
Or now they can shoot you, through a wall. Or they never miss. Because that's how they adjust difficulty now, right? Now we take off half your health and hit,
That's all that I tend to find, and that gets the gamer age element of Dave coming out at times as well. When you're doing the same thing, you can take 3 hits, but they can take like 2 or 3 clips, and they can still be smiling at you. You sort of lose the experience when they just turn into big bullet sponges with a shitload of hit points. I need to see that going, but it tells I'm very similar to what you said, saying like we need smarter enemies. So the difficulty level is they go from recruit to soldier to elite, literally. That's the way the AI just simply flicking a switch inside the machine. You still have the same amount of hit points. You're just going to try and get an enemy that's going to try and outsmart you. I think that whole area needs more development in the next gen myself.
And then if they actually look different, so you're not killing the same dude with a black baseball cap and sunglasses over and over and over again.
Can always help.
Yeah.
Well, Shane, it was very good to have you on the show. I've been a big fan for a while, and it was just great to talk to you, get some of your views on.
I really appreciate it, man. I had a lot of fun talking with you guys.
Missed you off the airways. Lou, do you want to wrap us up as usual? In my case, my cold comes through to anybody listening to this.
Yes, indeedy. You can contact Britcast at Britcast on Twitter. There's also email, britcast007@gmail.com. You can get in touch with me with @ugamers. You can get in touch with David @RemyLive. And Shane, if you want to let people know how they can get in touch with you.
On Twitter @Dinfire.
There you have it. Tweet him, ask him questions.
I'll answer. I'm pretty receptive on Twitter, so if you want to talk to me, hit me up there.
That's great.
Awesome.
Well, once again, Shane, thank you very much for coming on our show, and we hope to speak to you again in the future.
Most definitely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Right. And Luke, I'm sure I'll speak to you very soon.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody.